Anyone who does exit that kind of golden, glittering Hollywood dream is somebody who has sat deeply with themselves in the first place, looked really hard at themselves in the mirror and gone, I'm not selling out. I'm not taking this Faustian pact. I will not let the devil's dollar pass this palm. And that takes enormous nerve and courage. When I see reductive, stupid, moronic, banal, venal, digital warriors with their vicious little opinions issuing from the shadows, condemning the Russell Brands of this world, I just see it for what it is. Venal, banal, mundane voices of no consequence. But the problem is there's millions of them. And social media proliferates in such a way that it invites the white noise of dissent. It's not consensus. It's social engineering and cultural engineering. We all fall victim to it. And it's disgusting. And it is designed to weaponize against good people in our midst. So good leaders, political leaders, good celebrities, good artists who are pro-humanity in service of truth and relevancy are the ones who are invariably taken down. And I am coming in defense of Russell Brand in that context, okay? Because for me, it's a very significant play right now. And I'll tell you this much, I do have mutual friends. One of them is coming on now to speak in defense of Russell Brand. And I know this woman, she is a very precious soul. She is a kind woman, steeped in her own journey of alchemizing life into relevancy and into affirmation and into something beyond the mundane. So I have huge respect for this girl. I like her a lot. She's kind, she's good. She's resonant. She's a healer and a very good one. And over a year ago, she certainly helped me deal with a passage I was going through to do with somebody close to me dying. And you know, that's the worst thing. It's just the fucking worst when you're losing something or you think you're losing something or someone. In my case, the person who was afflicted is a very beloved member of my inner constellation in life, and she didn't die. She had a stage 4 terminal cancer diagnosis and given a few weeks maybe to live, and she was probably watching this right now. She's healed and she is incredible, and it didn't turn out that way for a whole host of different reasons, but I'll tell you that the woman I'm about to bring on, call her Tracy, and she's an evangelical spiritual teacher in her own circles. They call her Reverend Tracy Starchild, is a healer and is somebody who does do deep divinations and, like I said, carries the milk of human kindness. So when she saw this abomination unfurl on the strap lines and the newspapers, taking Russell Brand down in such a obviously calculated way, a full weaponization of media against someone who had told them to go and fuck themselves. He basically told the establishment to fuck itself, and he did so brilliantly, I think. So let me, without further ado, having spoken now for 13 minutes, bring Tracy, Reverend Tracy on. Tracy, happy to see you, and thank you for joining me.
Aloha, my dear brother. I am absolutely deeply touched by your intro, and it is my honor and pleasure to have been in service to you last year in your time of need. And it is my honor and pleasure to be in service to the divine masculine light warriors on this planet. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So 888 people in this particular room, but it's syndicating to a lot of other platforms. So a good audience watching us, and friends, thank you for looking in. And please, could I ask you to share this on your pages and just help get this out? Because it's an important message. It really is. Tracy, you were the one who chose to step forward, and you have not been seeking the limelight. You've had enough limelight in your past. You weren't looking for limelight. You were agonizing, as was I, about Russell Brand, about what he's going through with, a young family, a beautiful wife. Connected to the Rockefellers. Fuck off, come on. She's a young woman, 3 kids and a daddy, doing yoga, living on their own, somewhat off grid, and trying to have a relevant voice to speak against the evils of the world. That to me is what we're looking at. Yes. You feel just as I do that Russell is every man in this sense. Why did you feel the need to come now and speak about Russell Brand and speak in defense of him?
Thank you so much for asking this question. I don't feel I decided I was called. I don't look at what's going on out in the pop culture world or mass media. However, that night when I did respond, I was in bed with my lights off, my phone even off. All of a sudden, my intuition was turn on your phone, and I did. And guided to Instagram, I saw your post, actually, brother, about Russell. That's the only way I probably would have known, because I'm not looking out in that world unless I need to, and when I'm called. So before I knew it, I found myself automatically commenting on your post, and not much longer after that, making my own posts. And I really prayed on it. And I really checked on it, because I have been very, very quietly living in the jungles on my own spiritual journey the past many years. I had left the entertainment industry. I was a professional headlining burlesque artist in Las Vegas and worldwide, and also in acting. And I left that world just as Russell did, and just as you did. And this is truly, in my opinion and belief, the path of the warrior. The path of the warrior of light. We have to go through the trenches, through the dark, through the addictions, through all of that, because how else can we come rise above and help? So before I knew it, I was really divinely called, I feel, by the Divine Mother to stand up. 2 days before I had posted and proclaimed on my Instagram, I am ready to stand in my freedom and truth. And little did I know, within less than 48 hours, I would be called to do that. And I am one to honor what I say.
Very good. Okay, so let's just have a quick look here and this is just something I literally just pulled this out of the feed that was coming through earlier today. Just take a look at this, because it gives us a good example of why Russell is pissing off the establishment. Oh no, that's not supposed to happen like that. It's supposed to go. Come on. All right. You know what I have to do? I have to stop the screen. I've got to bring it in again. One moment, because it's definitely worth watching this. Stand by. I'm going to present. Share screen, capture the video, watch this now, and tell me what you think.
Damning Fox News with... Forget this moment.
Hang on.
Forget. You have to listen. Do you think you can improve America by determinately and avowedly condemning Fox News without acknowledging that you're participating in the same game? Did you not just listen to someone who plainly, legitimately believes in this country and believes it's possible to change, but is bound by corruption, is bound by the lobbying system? Surely it's clear to you, Bill, as one of the great pundits and experts and comic voices, that systemic change is required. Money has to be taken out of politics. We need new political systems that genuinely represent ordinary Americans, so that we can overcome cultural differences. And bickering about which propagandist network is the worst is not going to save a single American life, not improve the life of a single American child, not going to improve America's standing in the world, and the world needs a strong America. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that. You have an obligation, a duty. You have to listen. Do you think?
So I mean, that to me is classic Brand, right? It's absolutely classic Russell Brand as far as I'm concerned. This is why the world loves him. It's really because he's got that voice. So what the hell's happened now? Okay, there we go. We're back online. Are you with us?
It's refreshing to see this footage of him on a talk show versus what they're plastering out there of him 12 years and prior. The one that the entertainment world designed and paid him to do, you know. So I really truly feel who is with us today, the person he's evolved in, and I knew him at a time where he was really starting to come into that person, but privately.
Yeah. Okay. So let's speak now about your own relationship. I don't want to get kind of OK magazine about it, but but the fact of the matter is that you were his lover, I think about 10 years ago. Is that correct?
From 2012 to 2013, on and off, but very regularly. And it was a deep friendship. Also, we had really true deep conversations. We would watch documentaries. It wasn't only a sexual relationship. So I just want to really be clear on that. I wasn't only an intimate partner. We actually had a friendship where we would really talk about, and he was starting to talk about some of these things back then. He was showing me documentaries of the, what we would call now the awakening. He was already on that path, but not publicly speaking it.
Okay. Well, that's incredibly relevant, and more to the point, given that the establishment media campaign is painting him out to be an arch predator, rapist, violent heathen. Speak a little bit about the man and his manner.
Thank you. Thank you. It's very important to me because first and foremost, I am a recovered addict of 16 years. So to me, this is a human's right issue, first and foremost, that we cannot have this allowed, this trial by media, to dig into people's closets who have truly reformed and have actually done mass community service through documentary, through speaking out. So to me, this is where I really stand in this. It's like, this is absolutely not allowed to go on. And people are allowed to change. We must allow people to change.
I think what I'm driving at is not that. I'm asking about the man and his manner. I'm asking about,
yes.
Was he kind? Was he gentle? Was he violent? Was he a rapist? Did he beat you up? Let's get into that stuff, because
Absolutely.
that's what the accusations are predicated on.
Russell was a beautiful man, and which is why I feel comfortable and confident to stand up for him. He was kind to me. He was loving. He was very tender, funny, but not the guy that you saw online. He wasn't this over the top, like randy person at home. That was what he was out in public and in the media. But he was much more calm, very subdued. And, I could tell you, Sacha, one of the things that I remember the clearest, I didn't make a habit of spending the night a lot, but one morning I did. And one of his assistants knocked on the door and came in and said, "Russell, you've got a radio interview in 15 minutes. And his mood sank a little bit, and he had this somberness. He's like, "All right, love, it's time to go be Russell Brand now." And I just felt this wearing on his soul, where this was not what he wanted anymore, but was still the cage, the golden cage he was in. Yeah. And that, he was saying, I got to go be him now. But that's not who he was anymore.
I got it. I mean, I'm personally not sympathetic with the poor little rich kid thing, but I get what you're saying. And the point that you're making is that there were intimations at that time, 10 years ago, that he was genuinely trying to depart that world of false light, of idolatry and the kind of bullshit, because it almost took him out, it almost took him down, the false light, the drugs, and the kind of jamboree, the razzmatazz thing. It either sits with your soul or it insults your soul. And if it insults your soul, as it did to him, and it certainly did to me back in the day, you have no choice but to depart and to forge a new path in life, or it'll kill you one way or the other. It'll take you down. So thank you for qualifying that about him. Look, if it's good with you, and just before I go, I wanted to invite audience. We have a huge audience today, a really big audience looking in, and I'm inviting people to ask questions. Please make them relevant. I'm going to have to go through and see if there are any relevant questions coming in. But before I do that, I just want to remind the world of this man. I want to remind the world that this man, Julian Assange, is without a doubt the most important human being in the world today. It's a hell of a thing to say. In my view, he's the most important living son of God. Not because he's messianic, but because he represents the atom seed of our humanity. Because this man has been incarcerated for years, spent many years in the Ecuadorian embassy until the son of a bitch incoming president decided to sell and horse trade with Julian Assange to get some WTO or IMF or BIS credits. Fuck you, whoever the president was of Ecuador, who traded in honor and truth. But Julian Assange was subsequently snatched by British police and their draconian dragnet and taken into custody. I think it's Belmarsh, where he's been ever since. And now, as we all know, there are attempts to have him sent across to the United States to face trial there for committing such arch treason. All he did was pointed out the truth of war, the truth of money, and the truth of the arch criminals who are running Washington District of Columbia, the intelligence and elements of the intelligence and the military fraternity. And I deal with a great many of those elements, and they're not all rotten by a long chalk. But this man, Julian Assange, went out of his way to inform humanity through the WikiLeaks program. And thank God he did, because I can tell you that he sped up our ascension no end. So please, friends, do not forget Julian Assange. Everyone should be remembering this man on a daily basis. We need to now join chorus. I've kept quiet for far too long on it, but I have been on the front line doing 1,000 other things. I'm just realizing that Russell Brand, Julian Assange, same animal. They remember with Julian Assange, how did they get him? They actually got him by drumming up some rape charges that happened in Scandinavia. Okay, so let's talk a bit about that before we turn this into Q&A from the audience. How easy is it to dredge up historical charges of rape or assault? It's all too easy.
It seems even more easy when they're anonymous, when we don't even know who these people are and they haven't.
No, darling, they're not anonymous. They're Jane Doe. Haven't you heard? Right.
Yeah, it's like, it's very easy to get actresses even possibly. I don't know if they did any of the things that they're even saying. I really don't believe it. And I just want to say that I don't condone rape, but we're not talking about a rapist. No. I couldn't have spent so much intimate time with someone as an intuitive for a year and not suspect this about him. So this is where I'm coming from. I have a very good sense of these things. I didn't witness it. There were times where other women around, he never disrespected anyone in my presence ever. However, when he was in the public eye, he behaved like Russell Brand that they paid him to.
Right. And that's about the long and short of it. Okay. Whilst I'm just going to call up. There we go. Friends, if there's any questions, excuse me, looking like grandpa here. I've got to stick my glasses on to read the screen. Can't read a bloody thing. Okay. Friends, please, can I ask you just not to comment for a moment and just to put questions in if you have questions. Otherwise, I've got to wade through 10,000 comments and not see any questions at all. Hashtag free Julian Assange now. Yes, indeed. Rumor has it that Julian is Trump's uncle. Really? That's not appropriate right now. Okay. Ask questions, friends, because we've got someone who was close to Russell Brand, and we're talking here about hashtag Me Too, historical rape, drumming up. And again, in defense of the hashtag Me Too movement, I personally think it was a very carefully crafted psyop, because the progenitors of it, the public profile progenitors of the hashtag Me Too movement, are good people. No question about that. One of them I know, and she's the real deal and has a real historical gripe. And I get that. But when we look at the story of Harvey Weinstein, this is a classic example. I've got to be somewhat careful what I say here. Candace Owen wanted to interview me on this a couple of months ago, and I decided not to do the interview. But I'm able to speak to some extent to the way that things are orchestrated in the basement in Hollywood. The takedown of Harvey Weinstein, I'll put it this way. Harvey Weinstein may have been a boorish oaf and a predatorial man in the good, rich tradition of old Hollywood producers who all ran around the casting couch and fucked all the starlets. That was just de rigueur, has been since Hollywood was conceived, okay? Goes on still to this day, just in a far more measured way. And it's more to do with sodomites and that than it is about normal engagement with, predatorial producers and directors and young starlets. But the point of it is a predatory complex, Hollywood, by distinction and by definition. Harvey Weinstein was a product of that culture, or that subculture, which became mainstream. And Harvey Weinstein, in simple terms, is the very least amongst the iniquitous in the Hollywood echelon. The reason why they threw gasoline on him and then threw a torch and set him alight in Technicolor was in order to create a decoy, whilst the Satanists and the real nasties rearranged the furniture in the basement. So you create a show trial with a Harvey Weinstein, who's regarded always as a collateral piece of shit by those guys, because he's not one of them foundationally. Now, people very close to him, and I could name names and I won't, are and were the real players in that world. He was not one of them. He was having fun. He was kind of surfing the Hollywood legend status thing and taking full advantage of his eminent power. And that's pretty disgusting and despicable in many ways. But it's not something that you should go to prison for life for. That's the point I'm trying to make. Harvey Weinstein being in prison and languishing in prison for all time is an abomination. It's an abomination. And everyone wants to hate in our culture. Everyone is adrenalized because our lives are mostly fucking mundane and irrelevant. And we need to feel adrenalized. It's why we eat animals. It's why we drink alcohol, take drugs, and have, amorality, is because of this need to feel alive. But friends, it's on each of us to stop becoming part of the parasite that is devouring us, because that's all that's happening. You participate in the theater of the hashtag Me Too movement. You participate in the takedown Harvey Weinstein, takedown, Russell Brand, takedown. If you participate in the auditorium, in the theater of that, you're next, number one, and you thoroughly deserve to be. But the point is, it's a parasite culture. It's an adrenalized, sensationalist culture. It is pornographicized reality. It's Sodom and Gomorrah, and we're responsible for it. So just start to withdraw your attention. Stop participating in that pandemonium, because it's going to devour us entirely. Let's see if there's any questions here.
I'd like to speak back to
Please
what
do.
you were sharing.
Rip on that for a couple of minutes whilst I choose some questions.
Yeah, go through your questions. I think you're making an amazing point. I won't speak to Harvey Weinstein. I didn't follow that case. I didn't know him. However, it does seem to me to be a prototype. And now they knew it works. And now that they are confirmed, and okay, we can get everybody and play on women's emotions and men's emotions, because rape is a massive topic. It is an incredibly horrible thing. And so now they know it works. And now they want to shut up the people that are talking. And everything that you've spoken about is near and dear to my heart, because I was in the industry as an actress, as a burlesque artist. I was actually a prototype used for one of the biggest pop stars against my consent, which I have unraveled and learned in the last year. So I have a very personal stake in all of this. And I also am not standing for what Hollywood is doing in front of our eyes and our faces, the demonic, satanic energy that they are emitting out to our children. First and foremost, Starchild, I'm here because I'm here for the kids. It's a beacon to remember. And I am not going to stand for anymore silent. What are they doing out there? There is so much luciferic energy that is being just pumped into the general masses. And so now, because Russell is speaking out, they know they have this proven Me Too movement. It has been twisted into a whole nother way. Now we have Jane Does. And so this whole entity of a shit show that they're doing out there has to stop. And it only stops by people speaking up. And like you said, Russell, not getting on the bandwagon of going along with it, because a lot of people are living a more mundane life. So to feel involved in something is exciting to them. But the invitation here, people, and of course this audience is already in this invitation, is to open our hearts and truly get on the bandwagon of love, of truth, of peacefulness. And also what I've witnessed even in this last week is the public is programmed for hatred. I've had many past old friends, I won't call them friends anymore, that were vaccinated and were attacking me because I was standing up for Russell. And as much love as I was trying to bring to these people, like, hey, you know me, and I'm sorry I hurt your feelings, or I'm sorry you're offended. And it was just programmed, just like, it was just hate, hey, like I didn't even know these people anymore. So I feel it all works together. They have these planned attacks, calculated attacks, and then the people with poison that is mind controlling them. And I feel it's all really working together as one
Okay.
very bizarre
Very good. All right, so we've got Wendy Dean writing in. I'm a 75-year-old woman. In my time upon this earth, I've learned that not all women should be believed. Well, I'm going to take that as wisdom from a good crone. Thank you for that, Wendy. Women have learned how to use their gender to destroy men. Not that there are not men that can do bad, but it's not every man. I think that's very well stated, Wendy, and a very welcome point of view. Adam Alexander, why do you think the elites have engineered this to happen right now? What is it that they are trying to silence currently from him? Does he have dirt? Well, I'll speak to that momentarily. Yes, of course, he's to some extent got dirt. The dirt is through actualized consciousness, so he's able to see through the bullshit and see the real scum and speak to it boldly. So yeah, he's got dirt, and it's an unlimited supply of dirt that an actualized person can see and speak to. So Russell Brand's thing is seeing everything that's happening, almost like a kind of helter-skelter opportunist. He's scouring, seeing things, themes are turning away, he's grabbing and snatching them, speaking to them very brilliantly. So he's a very dangerous guy in that sense, because he's very quantum, very flexible, very fluid, very undefined, and he can speak to almost anything. As if it's injudicious and affronts him or insults his soul, he's going to seize it and speak to it bluntly, much the same way that I do. So yes, he's got dirt on the establishment. If you're talking about in the Hollywood basement, I don't imagine he does. I would only speculate on it, and I'm not going to speculate. But I do know that the way he left the relationship with his ex-girlfriend, I can't remember the woman's name.
Katy Perry.
That's the one. I know that he sent a message, a text message, and I think that that was ignominious. Forgive me, ignoble. I don't think that was appropriate. I think that was very harsh under any circumstances. You just don't do that to any woman ever. So I think that was bad behavior, very arrogant, very churlish, and that has come back to haunt him. Think about it. It may be a cool rock and roll thing if he felt disabused in his relationship to end the relationship with a text message. He did momentarily break her heart. I remember that because she was kind of weeping and wailing about it. But now, 10 years later, I bet he wished he hadn't done that, because she is one hugely influential pop icon who could have come to his defense in the same way that you are, Tracy. But he played that bad. So it's obvious that he did play some things very bad, and it's coming back to haunt him. But does he have dirt on the Satanist, the satanic echelon? I very much doubt it, and I'll tell you why I say that. I don't think he was ever inducted. I think he was being seduced into those echelons. I think they were going to make a move on him at the point at which he had $1 billion in his bank account. That's normally when it happens. And they move in and say, well, it's now an iron collar. We own you, and we expect you to do X, Y, and Z. You get pulled in slowly. It's like a vortex. And before you know it, you can't get out. That's the issue. He was smart enough or intuitive enough or irreverent enough to get out whilst he still could. So no, he's unlikely to have any of the real secrets. But speak to that if you wish.
I would love to actually speak to our elder Wendy, who stepped in, and because I feel that is a huge point, and that's what this Me Too movement is, that's gotten the public's attention and their hearts. And this is a matter of the patriarchy playing on the shadow feminine, the unhealed feminine, and this is a sick game that they're playing. And also what you're speaking of, you know, we can't assume why. It doesn't seem right that he would break up with her that way, but we don't know why. Maybe he didn't feel safe to see her again. We don't really know what was going on. And I've just always learned to not make assumptions. And I feel that when you are married to one of the biggest pop stars in the world, you certainly know a lot and have been invited as well. So we don't really know. And I feel pretty confident that he made the choice that wasn't the direction, and why he left his marriage with Katy Perry, because to me, she is a puppet pop star who is not able to make her own decisions. And is my understanding, she will be coming out to his defense. That is quiet knowledge, but I have heard this and believe she's now being sent in, you know, and so there's a lot more to meets the eye.
Okay, very good. So, you know, there are all sorts of controversies that happen because of a paparazzi photograph or something that's said in the spur of the moment that gets hooked onto and then gets conflated into becoming something huge. I mean, that one pretty disgusting image of the Dalai Lama sticking his tongue out at the little kid, you know, and when we, you know, everyone, including myself, were absolutely disgusted and outraged by that. I went definitely on the attack when I saw that. And frankly, I owe the Dalai Lama a couple of favors. He was very decent to me and to Humanitad 20 years ago, helping network to certain spiritual leaders and writing letters for my leadership publication that I was at that time publishing to bring ideas of leadership together. So I have only had good experiences personally with the Dalai Lama, but I'm not a fan of the Dalai Lama because I know that that is a CIA operation and has been since the 1950s. Now, the degree to which he knows that or understands that, I will never know, but I know that he is that asset and has been a kind of cultivated asset. And so I've never bought into the Dalai Lama Tibetan Buddhist thing in the way that most mainstream people do. And I went on the attack with the tongue thing because I thought that looked disgusting, but it was my psycho-intellectual reflex and psycho-emotional reflex to the image that caused me to do that, to start stoning him. And 48 hours later, we realized that it's a 1,000-year-old tradition for the Tibetans to stick their tongues out at kids. And it's nothing to do with pedophilia, nothing to do with predatorship, but it's an old custom of doing that. And, you know, like say Eskimos rubbing their noses together or whatever. The fact of the matter is that we have a tendency in the West to think that we're the alpha omega of arbitration and we know what's right and what's wrong and what's moral and what's not. No, we don't. You've got a fucking opinion. That's it. That's it. That's end of story. That's it. We've got a sense of it. You know, Russell Brand, 16-year-old schoolgirl. Okay. Not personally my cup of tea, but again, one of my older friends spoke to a thread saying, well, cultures change, you know, traditions change, society changes. Back in the 60s and 70s, that was not frowned upon. And absolutely true. In the main, there are different times, different cultures, different traits that describe our evolutionary journey. And today, girls are being wed at the age of 7, 8, 9, and even younger in parts of the world. And by best accounts, are cohabiting and taking the bed with their husband, you know, premenstrual. So I find that personally abhorrent. I'm sure that you do, and I'm sure that 99.9% of people looking in do. But I'm not an Eskimo, and I'm not a Kalahari Bushman, and I'm not a Maasai warrior, and I don't know the proclivities or the psychocultural proclivities of these people. It's been entrained for thousands of years. I'm just saying, this kind of Western idea that we are the arbiters of morality. No, we're not. We're the arbiters of our opinions, and they're very reductive opinions. There's some more questions here. There's one woman accusing you and me of being an apologist for pedophiles, and we're protecting pedophiles.
Absolutely not.
No, you don't even answer. Madam, whoever you are, madam, pull that rather fetid head of yours out of that arsehole and depart this temple of truth now, okay? Do it yourself. I'll give you 30 seconds, and then you'll be deleted by one of the moderators. Fuck off. Okay. Is Russell controlled opposition? That's the big question, of course. But then is Sacha Stone controlled opposition? Well, if I was, I would be running to his defense, right? Okay. That means that you're also controlled opposition, Reverend Tracy. Oh, my dear, this starts to get quite nebulous. There's many of us control. You know what? Grow up. Russell Brand is not controlled opposition. If Russell Brand was controlled opposition, he wouldn't be facing the scrutiny of the world's media, be stoned to death right now. Okay, so no, he's not controlled. But having said that, I'll be quantum about it and say, yes, he is controlled opposition in some ways without him even knowing it, or was. And that's how it works when you're in the entertainment game, when you've got publishers and you've got management, you've got public relations folks, you've got label owners of the labels and the studios. These are the guys who are infested with the Babylonian priesthood at some degree. And they're the ones who make determinations about that kid's going to go places, that chick's going to go places for different reasons. Maybe that chick is good at doing things with her mouth under the table. I don't know, but I do know that that more or less is how the pecking order works. So if you're prepared to flash and you flash your kimono and spread your legs and do things to these flatulent old men in rock and roll and in Hollywood, yes, you're going to find yourself moved up the ladder quite quickly. That's just the way it works with appetite and greed. But is Russell Brand in and of himself controlled opposition? Categorically not. Couldn't possibly be so. Tracy?
I don't really know how to answer that, quite honestly, other than I feel he is his own man who has claimed his sovereignty. He has gone through the world very publicly and then a more private spiritual journey. And I feel that he is truly here speaking what he believes. I feel he is a bridge from the mass public culture to the truth and the spiritual communities, because I feel that, as you so eloquently discussed in the beginning, you've been in this path for a very long time, and we're grateful now to have people who have these mass followings, because they're reaching a different audience than you and I ever will. And so it takes many of us on this mission. No one's better or worse or has more experience necessarily. As what all that matters is now those of us that are seeing the truth speak from our heart. And so I see him as a bridge for the movement of heaven on earth, ultimately.
Right. Okay. Was Russell kind to people who are considered lower on the status pole than he? Well, who's to know? I mean, I've just been very unkind to somebody very much lower on the food chain than me, that idiot woman who was accusing us of protecting pedophiles. I was unkind to her in public. I'll be unkind again. If she raises her head, I'll kick it off. So yes, he probably was in the past unkind to people on the lower on the food chain than him. It's kind of a nothing burger question, no disrespect. But I get your point. I get your point. And yes, exactly. And what we have to go by is the law of, not the law of first report, who told us what, but who actually experienced this man. And Tracy did. And she has already explained that he is very kind.
Yes, he is a very kind man. I see him as someone who truly loves from his heart. When I met him, I was with one of my friends who's a little person, and he was just completely enamored by him. You know, he was very kind to anybody that I ever saw him around. Truly.
So someone's asking, Tracy, are you saying that all of your sexual encounters with RB were consensual? Well, obviously she's saying that, but yes. I'll let you answer that question.
Yes, they were absolutely all consensual.
Thank you. Okay, a random question here. Do you know who Greg Hallett is, Sacha? Please, I need to hear from you. 12 exclamation marks. Please, 12 exclamation marks. Mike, Jamie, yes, I know Greg Hallett. I know him very well. I've spent considerable time with him. I've spent hours filming with him many years ago. I've not released the film, but I do know Greg Hallett. The answer is yes. But I'll keep that off this particular broadcast thread. Reach out to me elsewhere. Thank you. Alan Yates is asking, would you go on MSM to support Russell if they asked, which they probably won't anyway?
I would. Yes, because this is part of my mission. I am a minister of love. I am a priestess of the Magdalene. And what Mary Magdalene, who is so near and dear to my heart and the guidance and what I teach about for the divine feminine, she walked with Jesus.
Very good. I like that. That's beautifully stated. Eddie Cooper's asking, just because the Jane Does gave details does not make it true. Many say they gave such details, it must be true, but it's a tactic. Don't fall for it. I think that's more or less correct, Edie. The Jane Doe thing and the John Doe thing never sat well with me. I'm a pure truth guy, a brazen guy. I say bring it out into the open, you know. A final question. How is Mel Gibson getting away with speaking out? Okay, so as we're speaking to truth and disclosure, I don't know Mel Gibson. I came very close to having lunch with him about 10 days ago. He was trying to get across to where I was. I was having lunch with Roseanne Barr and some other friends at Sue Wong's, where I stay in Malibu. And Mel was trying to get across to join us for lunch. I was with Scott McKay as well, Patriot Street Fighter. We wanted to talk some tactics with him. I would have had a better answer for you now than I did, and I hope to see him when I'm back there. I don't know the answer to that question but in a sense I do. My sense of it is that he is a Christed individual and a profoundly Christed individual, and that Christed mantle, if you wear it squarely on your shoulders, is the Daniel in the lion's den, and you can, as I keep insisting, walk through the valley of death fearing no ill, provided you stand in pure truth and conduct right action and are unafraid to do so. So Mel Gibson is a classic example of someone who began declaring the war against, in that sense, the crypto Khazarian mafia element, which the people who did a heist of Hollywood and of mainstream media and of the banking sector are masquerading behind the blessed Jewish faith. And they're a disgusting clutch and need to be exposed. And it took a very powerful and very wealthy Hollywood icon like Mel Gibson to do so and to remain on the front foot there. But it's a very contentious subject because people make the huge mistake of thinking it's to do with Semitism and anti-Semitism. It's nothing to do with that. But Mel Gibson has prevailed. When Hollywood tried to bleach him out of existence, he's prevailed as a titan. So that gives you the answer. He is protected by the God in his own heart. Reverend Tracy,
Yes.
let's wrap this up. This has been 50 minutes. I was trying to keep it to 30,
I'd
but
love
we've
to
got
share one last little
it's
thing.
growing. Darling, you don't need to say that to you. I'm a good moderator. I'm going to give you final comments before we close, and I'll also invite any final questions, provided they are questions. Folks, please don't comment any longer on the comment thread. If there's any intelligible questions that you particularly want answered here, we'll give it another 9 minutes, and then I'm wrapping up at the top of the hour. Yes, Tracy.
Thank you. I just wanted to really share that at the time from 2012 to 2013, which is also in time of the questions of these accusations, as I mentioned, I saw a man that was genuinely on his spiritual journey. It was also the time he was writing and working on his Messiah complex stand-up. And so he was very, very much already on this path at this time. And that was the coming out, I believe, of him starting to share his more spiritual views and of the awakening. And so I just really wanted to express that this is a topic early on and in the time of question at the end of that time, 2012, that he was working on the Messiah complex.
Very good. Very
Which
good.
I saw him have a bit of a meltdown, and it was the last time we saw him. And I think
Right.
it was when his everything was coming to a head in his life. And I feel complete with that.
Okay, so Richie Allen has a very low opinion of Russell, called him lots of nasty things, which I don't agree with. This is from Craig Stewart. Thank you for that comment, Craig. Richie who? Sorry, don't know, don't care. Anyone condemning the living man is a piece of shit as far as I'm concerned, okay? You don't condemn living men or living women of the living soil. You condemn public officials or Satanists masquerading as leaders. That's who you aim your golden arrows at. You leave living men and women of the living soil alone, and you don't judge them and you don't condemn them. So no one really cares what Richie Allen has to say about Russell Brand. One rather suspects that Richie Allen, whoever he is, wishes he could incarnate as Russell Brand's cock. That's just my final opinion on the matter. Okay, I think that's pretty much it, darling. We've got a huge audience here. I feel very guilty cutting this off. Russell, a warrior of truth. Let's leave that up as the last one. Yes, indeed.
Because that's what we are here for, isn't it, Sacha? To be warriors of truth, warriors of the light. And my invitation is for people watching this who are having a negative response. The reason I'm here today to talk to all of you is to invite you to come into your heart. And that is truly where we're at on this earth, people. We can't be breeding hatred. We can't be exemplifying what is the damnation of the world. We have to come into our hearts and really come out of judgment. Nobody's better or worse than anybody.
Beautifully stated, and I'm not going to try and trump that sentiment because I agree with it 100%. And no offense to anyone here who I insult, no offense to Richie Allen. You're all children of God. Love you deeply, broadly, and want to thank you all for joining us. Huge audience. Sorry to end the stream now, but this is the last vestige of my Sunday here in the Mayan Riviera. I'm heading to Turkey in a couple of days' time to head into the Göbekli Tepe and the sacred sites there. I'll be filming and doing live drops from there. Tracy, thank you so much for your gracious words today. And I hope you don't get too much backlash for this, but thank you and much love to you.
Hey, you know what? I'm here for it. I've stood up and now I'm not sitting back down because I've begun and I'm not going to stop. And this is truly the beginning of Reverend Starchild coming out in the name of Mary Magdalene and the Divine Feminine for the Divine Masculine and Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit comes back on this planet full force. Thank you, Sacha, for having me. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Much love to you all. Thanks so much.
Aloha.